and welcome to our interview series where we are highlighting some work that people are doing fostering mental health and looking at ways that they're fostering their own mental health. And today I'm excited to introduce our special guest, Brandon Kaufer. He is a social entrepreneur and the co-founder of the Social Good Club. So thank you so much for joining us, Brandon.
Thanks so much, Donna. Excited to be here.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the Social Good Club?
Yeah. So we exist to bring impact into the mainstream. That is a really easy way of putting it. We want to make what Nike did for running is what we're looking to do for the impact world, and really make it something that people are excited to jump into. And it's interesting, the subject of this and fostering mental health, because that was actually the core of everything we're doing and why we started this. Full, radical transparency I come from a world living in two worlds, actually. I spent my career in the music industry, but then also running a criminal justice nonprofit for the past 12 years. And so kind of living two lives, one in, radical consumerism and one in, radical impact and activism, and kind of like seeing a lot of polarity in those worlds. And then really, but it was always the service that kept me mentally strong and mentally healthy, and being able to do that work like kept me sane, for lack of a better word. But I didn't really realize it and didn't know I was doing that. And then about 2.5 years ago, my dad attempted suicide. And that really kind of like woke me up to some things and wanting to address mental health. And then through that process and through his journey, and this is where it came very clear for me, he found, healing through being of service, through his volunteering. He couldn't work. He was on disability insurance, so he wasn't allowed to even work and go back to his career. So he had to think of something else to do to really fill his time, and service is where it came in. And doing that at the same time as doing a lot of other work, it's definitely not just service, but that was a big piece that gave him purpose, gave him fulfillment, and like gave him the ability to take the next steps in his life in terms of being able to do the work he needed to do. Mentally and personally. And so we really did that. We really, we launched Social Good Club as an effort to solve two issues. One, started addressing some of the biggest global issues we're facing right now, and having enough of people to do that with, and started lightening the load a little bit for activists. Right now, it's a very small niche world that bears the whole weight of saving us all. And that's a really tough place to be. And it burns a lot of people out. And there's this feelings of needing to be perfect and needing to be always on and needing to give up your life for it. And that's just not sustainable. And I found that myself, and all of my friends that are in this world, they've felt it and they've come back from it, and some have not come back from it. Some have just left it. And so what our real goal is to bring impact and social good into the mainstream in an effort for everybody just to do a little bit more, lightening the load for everybody, and being able to actually make some real big changes. But at the same time, being able to start addressing some of our own internal issues. And mainly, we're not coming in here talking about that we're going to, cure mental health or especially not some of the more clinical, like the more clinically focused mental health issues. But where we focus on is really like loneliness, social isolation, stress, anxiety, depression, things that, we do have. Yes, they are chemical imbalances, but we do have the power to right those imbalances within ourselves. And by being able to just gain fulfillment and find purpose, we solve so many of our like just foundational issues. And so that's what we found. And so
and one of the things that we find with that, the whole idea of that imbalance of neurochemicals is that having that purpose, doing those things that are social good, that purpose is actually what balances those neurochemicals. So that's how we can impact it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've realized now that there actually is science and studies and research backing all of this. At first, when we first started this, it was like we want to start a mental health channel, but we don't really want to talk about issues. We want to talk about solutions, and like we feel good when we're just doing service. So cool, like we'll just put a bunch of service projects together, and we'll bring that into the world and do some fun things with that. And what we realized is that and then once we started doing that, started talking to people like yourselves and other behavioral scientists and therapists, and there was actually a lot of theories we could build this off of, and some that we are very aware of, like Maslow's hierarchy, and then there's a lot more like not unknown by any means, but not in the mainstream, not mainstream theories yet. And what we really found by combining a lot of these was to address loneliness, we need to first address fulfillment. And fulfillment comes in 4 tentpoles: purpose, mastery, service, and community. So finding something you care about, developing the skills to do something about it, having the opportunity to put those skills to use, and then a community to do the work with. And that's combining a few different theories that we put together. And so that's the whole focus of Social Good Club, is providing those four tentpoles for our audiences, and then also for the creators that we work with too, because we're powered by a community of amazing creators, content creators around the world, that all have amazing brands and do create awesome content in their own right. But now now the idea is, how can we start inserting some of these messages and, and more socially conscious messages into the content that people are already seeing, versus asking them to go to some new place to take on activism as a lifestyle, when it's just like, no, we can just make small shifts and changes and adjustments in our life, and that can just solve so much.
Well, and I know that you were talking about YouTube, some of the YouTube influencers in that,
Hmm.
and I think about the what was the initiative to plant the trees, the
Yeah, Team Trees.
team trees. I thought that
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
And I shared that with my kids, and that was what we did for Christmas presents, and that was
Oh, that's so cool.
following that, and we were very, very much influenced in terms of that, and looking at, look what you can do, look what these guys can
Hmm.
do, and they were awesome. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and those guys are amazing, and like, and what they've been able to do, and what they're going to continue doing. I cannot wait to see, because it's exciting, and like the idea. It's like, can we all just start doing? And like those guys, they're still doing all the content they've been doing. That was just one-off type, well, not one-off type things, but things that they're going to keep doing on an ongoing basis. But it's not like it's not a deviation from a deviation from their content. It's just part of it. And now it's just like inserting these and becoming part of it, and it's like, and not give up your life. Like, they're still doing other things. They're still having an amazing time, having fun, being full humans and being whole humans. And that's what we really want to celebrate, is the whole human in impact. Not this idea that you have to be the perfect human to do impact, which causes this, like I was saying earlier, this like either radical apathy or radical activism. Like, you have to choose one. There's very little middle ground. And what we really want to do as Social Good Club is empower that middle ground.
I love that stuff. I think that it's so important. I've been on the board. One of the interviews we did was with a friend of mine. I was on the board of Kids Helping Kids, which is developing leadership skills through youth-led service projects. And it's one of the tenets of what they focused on was, take your passion and turn it into action. Like, don't go out and find out what they need. Go out and say, hey, wow, I'm really good at this. I love doing this. How can this be helpful? And so it's
Yes.
projects that people love to do that make a difference, and they're sharing.
100%. And then it's just like, it's like, it's doing that, understanding what you really care about. And then, really important is like finding the people that need that, and make sure you're not assuming that they need it, like actually asking them, and, being like, how can we best serve? Like, this is what I'm really good at, and this is what I love doing. How can you use this? Like, how can I be of service to you? Versus trying to like sit there and think like, all the time we get things like, that I would never have thought about before. It's like, when around the holiday times, we were, talking about doing like, food, like, food drives with our like the homeless community out in Venice and things like that. And we started talking to some of the community members, and they were like, we're good on food. We get food like, people are coming a lot to us, not all the time, but around the holiday time. So like Thanksgiving and Christmas, like, we get more food than we know what to do with. Like, can you guys, figure out between yourselves and like stagger that, so you're coming throughout the entire year and not everybody coming at once. But what we need is socks.
Yeah.
And nobody's been bringing socks. And so it's like, oh, all right. So we just threw all the ideas of food out the window, and it's like, cool, that's how we want to serve. And we can provide socks, and we can provide just like human connection. And that was really the things that was needed more than anything. And so I think it's important as people going into impact, and people, going into this world of doing it, to not also create more trauma and more division between the people we're serving, and really bring them into that conversation of, what is the best way to serve using my gifts.
Well, and one of the things, and it's funny because when I was on the board, I said, what we were looking at the tenets of Kids Helping Kids, and I said, I don't want it to be necessarily a handout. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
there have to be ways, because you need to empower people that you're serving as well, and have them be part of it and part of the empowerment. Because when we're working on just handouts rather than hand up, it can also be detrimental to the resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and you don't want that either. And so I think it's critical to work together and say, okay, what can we do? And, just some silly stuff that you wouldn't really think about was service. But like, my daughter ran a project making slime and figuring out how to do
Yeah.
slime. But that made these kids' days that, these kids
Yeah.
came in and taught them how to do slime. And what makes us happy is what, laughter was what
A
was.
100%, and and it goes back to the idea of like the give empowerment and giving people the ability to not save themselves by any means, but be a part of the solution versus taking that handout. And like and this is something we just kind of like just know from having a lot of people tell us this over and over and over again throughout my years of just like, never show up in a community and do the work without asking the community what they need. But I would be really interested to know from your end, what is the actual science behind that? And what is happening in the brain when we show up and just like give something and walk away versus bringing that community member into the process and activating and empowering them through that. Like, it's something I just kind of take for granted as like, this is just what we do and we do it because we do it. Because that's because this is the best way to do it. That's why we do it. But actually don't know much about like the science behind that.
Well, one of the things that I have in the model that I created, the grasshopper with his arms up in the air and the feeling of the dopamine, the serotonin, all of those neurochemicals. And we get those when we are actively doing that service, so
Mm-hmm.
participating in it. So when we go in and give a handout, we get that, but the people that
Mm-hmm.
we're working with don't. If they're part of it, like in Kids Helping Kids, one of the things I really fought for was hand up, not hand out. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we do something like we do a prom dress drive where the girls can come in and we do collect dresses and they do get a prom dress, but it's a whole shopping experience. And in order to get the ticket to go in and be able to shop for a dress, they need to sit for they do cards for people in the hospital. So if someone
Cool.
is going to come in and get a prom dress because they can't afford a prom dress, and that we want them to have that experience. But
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
order to do that, they have to do something for someone else,
That's really cool.
and they actually get the neurochemicals of I'm doing something for someone else. I am, you know, paying. Not paying, but that is me. I'm not just getting a handout. I'm
Yeah.
doing something to earn that because we know that when kids earn money themselves, when they work hard, they feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
anybody, that's the human brain. Is it
And so
need?
by just showing up and giving, we're actually depriving the person we're trying to help.
Yeah. And I always say that the grasshopper with his arm up in the air represents the fact that self-esteem isn't a gift you can give someone. It's a neurochemical response you rob them of when you don't let them work and struggle.
Mm.
So,
Uh,
in some ways, there's actually a book called The Road to Hell, and
mm-hmm.
it's about that. It's about how, with the best of intention, it comes from the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
idea that we can have the best of intentions, but very often we're undermining what's best for people.
Yeah, yeah, and we see that so often. The best of intentions go awry quite quickly.
Yes. So I know you guys are doing some great stuff. I look forward to hearing so much about the Social Good Club and being part of it. But I also am curious for you, and I know that
Mm-hmm.
service is probably a big part of it. How are you fostering mental health in this pandemic?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like because we're one in the pandemic and two we're so focused on launching Social Good Club. I've had to reframe in my mind that is the service I'm doing right now and not actually in the field doing the work, which is that's where I love to be. I spend a lot of time in a lot of different spaces doing that, and that's where I come alive the most. And now I'm behind a computer most of the day, and so it's a difficult thing that I have to constantly remind myself of. Is like it's not just work. This is service, but I'm not feeling fulfilled on the service side by any means right now. I think I want more of that, and I'm hungry for more of that, and that is part of what we're looking to build that in as a culture within the team of actually being in the field and doing the work that we're talking about doing, because like again I feel like it's just so important. I don't want to rob myself or my team of that. So making that more of a piece, especially when we get out of this, is important. But personally, I mean, Shit, I mean, I just got on this call after coming off my therapy call, so that's one way I'm doing it. Is I have my weekly therapy sessions. We've moved to Zoom, so that's been helpful and it keeps me kind of grounded in this. I've started really treating my mornings as a very sacred time, and I have about a 2-3 hour window in the mornings that are really just like focused on starting the day with the right foundation.
Hmm.
So I do I wake up in the morning and before even getting out of bed, I do about a 45-minute meditation practice. And then I get up, have my coffee, read a little bit, kind of just like, so not, but nothing work related. I try to keep it as, just thought, just thoughts and stories and ideas and things like that. And then I spend about an hour doing, I started doing building projects.
Nice.
Um, and it's something that's like, I realized the other day, I was like, wait, I don't have any hobbies. Like, it's like I'm so busy during during my normal life when we're not in quarantine and running around, and like I would say my hobbies is like going into nature and going camping and doing things like that, but I don't have any at home hobbies. It's just like, or I realized I didn't. And so I had to sit with that for a second. That really kind of like upset me a little, and I was just like, wait a second, have I just like lost connection with what makes me happy? And I had to think about it, and like I'm the happiest when I'm creating, but I'm not an artist. And I know, yeah, we're all artists in our sense, but like I don't really find like pleasure out of drawing. I don't like, I try or doing art, art projects in any way. It's like maybe if I was a little good at or better at it, or I didn't put as much pressure to be good at it, I'd have more fun with it. But regardless, I don't fully enjoy that process. It feels more like I'm trying to get somewhere than actually enjoying the process. And so thought about it, but like creation and creating is what really brings me alive. It's always been on the business side. It's always been like in campaigns and impact and this and like just like creating systems. But then I was like, okay, like maybe there's something here in that space. And then my partner was like, why don't you try building? And I live on an amazing property where there's always work to be done and always projects happening, and the people I live with are really good at building and they're very creative in that way. And so kind of just jumped into that, and now it's become like a really big part of my morning. It's like I don't want to do anything else besides that. We put in like a couple new planter boxes the other day. We're digging out the entire backyard, or I started yesterday digging out part of the backyard to expand that another probably like double the size of it, because it's a lot of like unused area and things like that. So just like trying to get my hands dirty and get out of my head, I think is like, the best thing for me I found is like I spend so much time like in my head trying to think through mental wellness, and like, and like I'll sit there and I'll be like meditating really hard to like, make it work. And it's just like, but then sometimes when I just like disconnect from it and stop thinking about it and just like focus on something else, and that's obviously where the service side of it comes in too. But even not trying to like attach like an outcome to it beyond just like we're building something cool and we're going to enjoy it. That's kind of like what I found recently.
It's interesting. Some of the same things come up time and again in these interviews. And one of the projects that we've been doing and I find it a lot of my sons and we've been doing a garden outside the
Hmm.
building in our house. My two sons and my husband have been working on a garden and building that. One of my younger sons is building a lightsaber. He's coming with all this stuff, and my other son is actually with a friend of his. It's the one thing we're not doing social distancing because they've all been in quarantine and they're outside with masks on, but they're actually building
Hmm.
a cabin.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
which is just they're 18 and the two of them are building a cabin together, and they're all
That's cool.
always outside with. But I think building is really interesting because I've heard that. I talked to a first responder yesterday who said, gardening and building these um, raised beds for.
Hmm.
So I think sort of getting back to that is really important to people, that creative side.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we're all born to create in some way, shape, or form, and then that gets like just bashed down out of us for like, every which way. It's like you're not an artist, you don't create, you don't do this, and it's like, so just like tapping back into that is so important. And
Yeah.
I lost it. I did not consider myself a creator, an artist in any way, shape, or form, and then I spent time with way too many of them, and then I was like, wait a second, I kind of like this.
And it's not, when we we beat ourselves up over it. We don't think we can do it. And once we try, it's actually like, hey, wait, I can do this.
Yeah.
One of our projects last weekend was to make masks. And, half the family was like, no, I'm not doing that. I was like, yes, you are. You're going to learn to sew. You're going to sew some masks. And I think it's good. It's that, I did it. I can make this.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, so it's kind of cool. Really cool
Totally.
stuff. And I think that the service piece is really important. Feeling that compassion, pride, gratitude. That pride is really important.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're doing is awesome, and I really thank you for joining us. I think that I think I've said before in the interviews that this is one of my favorite things that I've ever done, is interviews with people and learning what they're doing. So we are going to put in a link to your Facebook page to let people know about the Social Good Club. Anything else that you want? I kind of ask you, and you can let us know if there's anything else you want to send people to. But
awesome.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.